Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lothar, your host, joined by Wendy Thompson, who is an expert in federal government resumes, and also Chris Westbrook, who is new to us. Chris has actually been a long time leadership trainer and just all because she's had a prolific career in the federal government, but she also understands the private sector, and she's done a lot of volunteer work with other job seeker groups. So we're delighted to have her here. Vern Schellinger isn't able to be with us today, or Tenny, but hopefully they will join us soon. So with that, we'll go ahead and open things up for Q&A. Since we have such a small crowd these days, it's you get a lot of airtime. So who has a job search question they would like to pose? We are here to help.
Do you want us to post it or just
no, since we're so small, you just talk. Yeah.
My question would be was in a job for approximately about 4.5 months, was not a good fit. My next steps are on my resume and my LinkedIn profile. Do I list that job or do I just leave it off of my information?
Yeah, that's always a good question when you're that's such a short period. I mean, I always default to just be accurate and honest, right? I mean, that's always take the high road. You were employed, you list it. I understand why people feel not to. Like I get the rationale there, but you always want to be upfront and full disclosure. So that's what I would do. I would just list it, and then you can explain if someone asks you what happened, to say that it wasn't the best fit. When you figured it out early on. And that's it.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Chris, did you have anything to comment? You're on mute.
Also, it does have the advantage, even if it's only 4.5 months, of making your work experience more current.
Correct. That's exactly right. Yeah, you've overcome, you've bridged a gap in tenure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So all in all, always be accurate. I mean, that actually is speaking of accuracy, I'll make a side point about that. Employers are looking for stuff like that. Not just tenure, not just, whether you've been employed for 4 months or not, but across your application, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, you need to I, dot, and T cross. It is so easy to have a typo. I mean, we're humans, right? We have optical illusions. We redo our resume 100 times and then we miss the semicolon because we just don't see it. You've got to thoroughly scrub your resume. Make sure every date is accurate. Periods are in the right place. Things are spelled right. Grammar is correct, right? You've got to look at that. I have seen it happen where somebody will get all the way through the interview process. In fact, many years ago, I think I've told this story before. I'd heard, it wasn't my search, but I'd heard about a search where it was an executive level person. He went through the whole process. And right at the end, they were, I guess, he was meeting with the senior team, and one of the senior team members found one typo on his resume and they nixed him. I know, right? It can happen. It can happen. The other thing too with LinkedIn is that you need to make sure that everything's consistent. Okay. Now I realize that the substance of your experience section might look a little different than your resume, because you're going to customize your resume a lot. You're not going to customize your LinkedIn. So one thing you want to do is from your resume, take the accomplishment stories that are going to always be static. Make sure that those are the ones that you put on LinkedIn. But beyond that, when you look at your chronology of LinkedIn, make sure those dates are accurate. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people miss a year, because you have the drop down menu. It's just so easy to hit the wrong year. You don't even realize it. So go back, make sure it's completely accurate, that the titles are the same, that the chronology is the same, because sometimes people bunch things up on their resume and not so much on LinkedIn. You just got to go make sure that there's no room for the employer to say, oh, you missed a spot, right? You just make sure that it's all scrubbed up. Okay. That's a good just overall tip. No typos anywhere, and including your thank you note and your cover letter. And anytime you correspond with the employer, you just make sure it's all buttoned up, because we move fast these days. It's easy to miss something.
Sure. I had an additional thought for Ty, and that is almost certainly when you get to the interviewing stage or even in screening, when you're asked about that short tenure, someone will say, why so short? And you'll say, well, it wasn't a good fit. And they will say, tell me more.
Right.
So being prepared for that and being able to end on a positive note about, the currency of information you gained in your field, an aspect, I don't know, of self-awareness, of greater clarity about what your job goals were. Wording it in that way can make it positive. And better to leave I came away from that experience even more determined to do blah rather than, I learned I don't want to do X, keep trying to keep it positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that you got more clarity around what's important to you and how you can make a better impact.
Well, one thing I did learn in the position is that there wasn't as much customer interaction that I expected.
Mm.
And I guess I could mention that it was more kind of systems oriented.
Okay, that's good.
Sure, there's nothing negative about that. And depending on the job, if it's customer facing, I would love to hear that as an employer.
Absolutely. Yeah, and presuming that the next job you apply for is a customer facing job.
Exactly.
Then they will want oh, great, that's good for us. Yeah, that's good. All right, other questions? Pam, good to see you. Been a long time. All right, who has a good morning? Good morning. This is Pam, I know this is your first time with us, so we're an open Q&A format, right? So if you have a job search question on any topic, we are here to help myself and Wendy Thompson, who's a federal government expert, and Chris, who's kind of across the board.
Yeah.
You might know Chris from CNN.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay, so who has another question?
I got a question,
Hey, Dan.
Shira. And I sort of, I think I know the answer, but basically, there's no harm in asking for feedback if you get, you make it through a few rounds of interviews and then they turn you down for whatever reason. As long as you go into it sort of not really expecting them to answer, they can't answer for legal or other reasons. But there's no harm in actually asking just for
There's
them.
no harm in, you said it perfectly. No harm in asking, manage your expectations. 99% of the time, they will not give you feedback. Okay. You're right. There's legal considerations. There's relational considerations. There are a lot of employers who, have been burned, frankly, when somebody very, innocently says, oh, I want feedback. Then they're given the feedback and then the person gets defensive, right? And then that's just not really comfortable. But legally, there's some issues there as well. So in general, they just stay away from it. But every once in a while, somebody will do it. And if they do, be extremely gracious. Do not defend yourself. Oh my gosh, that's the last thing you should do. If you want the feedback, receive it, say thank you, I appreciate that. Maybe ask a clarifying question, but you don't want to say, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. No. They've already made their decision, right? Unless there's something a real misunderstanding, but other than that, I just be gracious.
No, there's just I just had a very recent scenario, which is I met with two separate Zoom interviews with people. They were more like conversations than interviews, and just one was like the first was an hour and a half, and they went well. And then I was told, they were planning to schedule an interview for me, and I was given two specific dates and times. So I got back to them saying, last Friday at 10 o'clock is great. Da, da, da. She never confirmed with me until I didn't find out until I just so I assumed, even though I checked in with her saying, just wanted to make sure, or confirming this is on, never heard back. And I didn't hear that they couldn't do it on Friday until Friday, like 3 minutes after the interview was supposed to start. So that was what I viewed was very unprofessional on their end. So then they said, I can't do it today, but I'll touch base with you on Monday. We'll reschedule for this week. So I didn't hear from them on Monday. I checked in with them yesterday, And they said, then they got back to me and said, thanks for following up. We apologize for not getting in touch with you. Actually, we're not moving on with you. So it was just very weird. Just again,
yeah.
And I have no idea why. None. I mean, so it's just so frustrating.
Yeah,
So
it's a game of ping pong or pinball, maybe. Maybe it's a better analogy. There's so much that happens behind the scenes that you're just not aware of. And as you probably know, I think most of you know, I sit on both sides of the hiring aisle, right? I'm a recruiter, but I'm also a career coach. So I'm constantly listening to people like you say that, and also the hiring managers and what's going on in their head. So I have seen it happen where, for example, I have no idea what the situation is, but a really logical explanation would be a new candidate entered into the mix. Okay. All of a sudden, perfect fit. And they look back and they're like, oh, well, I know we were scheduled to move forward with Dan, but Susie Q is, a slightly better fit. We don't want to waste Dan's time. We're actually going to move forward with Susie. I mean, that is the most logical thing that could have happened, but there's a lot of other things too, but that might be the case. In fact, I had it happen very recently where I had a candidate who was great. The employer met him and he was fantastic, but then 2 other people showed up who were more qualified, right? So even though they left him on a high note, 2 other people came and he wasn't able to be considered, right? So things change, like on a dime. So sorry, I'm sorry for the pinball thing that you're going through, but there are explanations. It's not fun. I know.
For what it's worth, my personal view as a recruiter who was very conscientious in closing the loop with people, especially if they interviewed, I think an applicant who, especially if you're asked to interview, and especially if you interview, deserves to have closure. And I always encourage people to ask for the feedback, knowing you may not get it. But to my mind, recruiters and hiring managers owe that to people. And usually the problem is with the hiring manager, who is too busy, is interviewing on top of other, responsibilities. That was my case, at least as a hiring manager. And the recruiter's in the awkward position between the applicant and the hiring manager. But you're the applicant. I would nicely, as Shira suggested, ask for the feedback, be pleasantly surprised if you get it, and be gracious. But I think recruiters and hiring managers owe that to someone who was interviewed for sure. And in your case too, you were expecting to interview. They didn't. I mean, you even showed up and they were no shows.
That's basically where I'm coming from. I have no, I understand that new candidates come along and things happen, and it just strikes me as have the basic decency to, especially if you've talked about, actually you've given me a specific time for interviews, at least respond to me. Just say, we can't do it on Friday. Just have the decency to sort of like, anyway, but I absolutely understand that, another candidate might come along, things can change. So I get that. But I think in this particular case, I certainly think it could have been handled much better than it was. And anyway, that's all.
I found that some recruiters are more organized than others. Some HR people are more organized than others. Some are more responsive than others. And you're absolutely right. Every candidate should be treated with respect, and things you should be responded to very quickly. Sometimes that just doesn't happen because they're juggling tons of openings and tons of this and that, and then your email gets lost in the crack, right? And they're just on to the next thing. And anyway, it's not an excuse. It's just what happens, unfortunately. And yes, it should be better. You're right. And hopefully we all hold each other to higher standards when we hear stuff like this, right? And somebody's on this call who, in fact, we usually have a person in this call a couple people who are in HR. Maybe when we have HR people on the call and they hear stuff like that, maybe it's another reminder. Oh yeah, the next time I'm hiring somebody, let's make sure that I'm, extra responsive. So thank you for sharing that, Dan. It's true. It's important.
Oh, Dan, I understand where you're coming from. In my last round, I had four different organizations interview me. One I interviewed for twice, took a test. After the last interview, I followed up, dead silence. I never heard from them again. That was, and then there was another organization I interviewed twice with them, dead silence after the second interview. The other two, I got job offers from, but you have to ask the question, do I really want to work there? If that's the way the inner operations are, maybe it's like cross it off the list and go on to the next one.
Exactly. Yeah.
It got bounced out. Sorry, folks.
It's okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
All right. Who else has a question?
I do have another question, but I don't want to monopolize the time. Any suggestions on temporary agencies in the DC area? I don't know if you're allowed to throw out names, or I'm thinking about right now, like maybe I need to look at temp to work as a possibility.
There's a ton. They're on kind of every street corner. The one I always refer, and I've referred it to actually someone else on this call, is Help Unlimited. My contact there is Wendy Zanarati. I've been literally referring business to her for 20 plus years. She's a character for sure. She's a big personality, but she's good. She's got a lot of business. So it's W. Her last name is Zanarati, Zanarotti. So it's W Zanarati at helpunlimitedtemps, TEMPS.com. I happen to have memorized her number from a long time ago. It's 202-296-0200. So she's one, but there's literally, you just, Google it. I mean, there's, Kelly Services and Norel and Higher Strategy has temp work. Gosh, there's just Ruthie Postow and Associates. They do. I don't know if anybody else wants to raise their mic off the top of your head. Other agencies, Linda. I don't know if you've been with anyone else other than Help Unlimited.
I would not personally would not recommend Kelly Services, but I won't go into the details as to why. But when you were talking about Wendy, she got me a great gig over the summer, and I'm still waiting to hear if anything else is coming through. I haven't heard anything yet, so it's worth it for him to give it a.
Yeah, it's timing, because you never know what kind of openings that the temp agency is going to have. That's why
Yeah,
you want
that's
to sign up
true
with
too.
multiple. You never, because they're not working for you, they're working for the employer.
Yeah.
Right? The employer has the need, and if you happen to be the right person, they'll call you. So this, you just never know. There's another one called Sparks. I think it's called Sparks Personnel. There's a ton of them out there.
Shira, can you give the phone number and the email address again for Wendy?
Yeah,
I couldn't type
I'll put it in
fast enough. Sorry. Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Oh, but before I do, I actually had just to press pause on that for a second, Pam. I had actually teed up in the chat box a link here tomorrow morning. So Saturday the 9th, I'm going to be giving a presentation at Career Confidence on accessing the hidden job market. Okay. And here is the link. Here's the meetup page for that. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to be speaking at Career Network Ministry on resume and LinkedIn branding. And if you just put in Career Network Ministry into meetup, you'll find it. Now you won't find I think today they're posting the link, so I'm not there yet. So maybe by end of day, you'll find it. So the one for tomorrow is at 9 a.m. Eastern, and then the CNM meeting is on Tuesday at 8 p.m. It's an evening meeting. Right, so now I will put in the chat box. Hey, Sonia. All right, so there's Wendy. You can give her a call. All right. So yeah, so there you go. Any other questions?
Yes, I have another question. Or people are getting jobs now, so it seems like the market is on an uptick. Is there any other signs that you see that the market is on an uptick?
Oh, yes, because of some, and HR people know this. You guys might know this too, because it's been in the news. There's something called the Great Resignation. Have you heard of this? I forget the guy. I read an article recently about the guy who actually coined it and why he coined it that way and whatever. But anyway, yeah, the Great Resignation is that there's a ton of people now who are just leaving their jobs for all kinds of reasons, having to do with, stress, work-life balance needs. A lot of people actually had been planning on leaving their jobs pre-COVID, but then stopped, right? Because they got all nervous in COVID, and now things are opening up. So now they're leaving, and there's this mass exodus. Well, with a mass exodus comes mass openings. So we should be seeing more and more openings happening. I will say that when openings happen, employers are continually looking for the unicorn candidate. That's the tricky part about this, right? Because on the one hand, there's lots and lots of jobs. On the other hand, employers are still pretty niche in what they're looking for. A lot of them are more flexible now with the remote working situation because, right, for obvious reasons, and the whole hybrid. And some people, I know a lot of people who are actually looking now, I know of job seekers who are looking for 100% remote, who never would have even suggested that before. And so now employers are starting to flex, not everybody, some are. So that is definitely a game changer that I've been hearing about. But in terms of qualifications, they're still pretty niche because they want what they want. They don't want to take a risk. I talk about this all the time. Employers are risk averse. So you still have to, even there's a lot of jobs, right? You still have to customize your resume. You still have to find an internal champion to get noticed. You still have to button up and I dot and T cross and all those things. But there are more and more jobs that are open for sure.
Shira, let me add to that. You can definitely tell this is going on because some people are now interviewing 20 or more candidates for one position.
Yeah.
It used to be they would take the top 10, narrow it down to 3 or 4, and then have the interviews and make a selection. Now they are stretching it out. It's taken a month. Update. So yeah, the Great Resignation is definitely going on. I hear from my colleagues that's working, and my network is huge, and they are going through that. And us in HR, we know what's happening. There's nothing we can do. We're just like you. We're just giving it a shot and seeing, when we can break through, but it's definitely going on. So now you are competing with the people who were unemployed, and you be competing with the people who want to leave their current job that they wouldn't jump off during COVID, like last year and the beginning of this year.
Right.
They're doing it now in droves.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. So it's a very interesting market for both sides. It's like the housing market, right? All of a sudden there's been this, like, anytime a house comes up, within hours, there's offers.
Oh.
It's just fascinating. Yeah. So anyway. All right, other questions?
Yes, when declining a job offer, is it better to write them an email or call?
Call them. I know a lot of people who do write, and as a recruiter, I'm okay with that. But it is much better when you call. It's a courtesy, professional courtesy to do that. I know not everybody feels comfortable with it, but we recruiters appreciate when we hear from you. And besides which too, it gives us an opportunity to hear maybe why, right? You're declining the offer. Gives us an opportunity if we can possibly overcome it, because maybe there was something that there was a misunderstanding, or maybe, for example, let's say you're turning it down because of compensation, because you don't think that the employer can go up, and maybe you're like, oh, wait, no, actually we can, so give a call, and normally, they'll be very gracious about it, but maybe it could lead to a bigger conversation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Pam, you're new to us today. Do you have a question?
you know, I had one and it came and it went. And I'm like,
Oh.
okay, what was I was gonna ask? So I'm trying to go through the recesses of my brain here to see what it was I was thinking. And I don't remember now.
Okay. So Chris, I know that you do a lot of volunteer work with CNM. What are some of the questions you've been hearing about recently?
Well, there's a lot of concern from folks, especially since CNM draws experienced people, about ageism,
Yep.
blatant and implicit.
Yep.
And what are some of the suggestions you and Wendy would have about how to present yourself at whatever age as learning and current with technology, and almost preempt those concerns?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that's actually one of them you just mentioned is the staying up to date kind of a thing. And, you know, certainly on your resume, right? Obviously, you know, make sure that the technology that, if the employer has listed technologies, make sure you have it listed. Make sure it's on your LinkedIn profile. Okay. So that's one thing for sure. Just just at a top level. In the interview, you can also talk about how you're keeping current with things, not just technology, but latest trends and keeping your skills up, articles you're reading, how you're keeping up with your profession or the industry. Show eagerness, you know, around the job that you're applying for. And I would say that leads into this topic that I'll call sort of having energy. Okay. So the unconscious bias, one of the unconscious biases around ageism, has to do with a misperception that older people lack energy, right? That older people are going to just sort of, you know, be lax on the job, right? It's a myth. So you want to make sure that in your interviews, and by the way, because interviews are 99% of the time these days on Zoom, okay, you've got this little window to show your personality, okay? So see what I just did, like I lean forward, like you got to show up. You got to show as much energy as you can. And whether you're introverted or extroverted is irrelevant. You want to take up the screen, okay? And you want to, you know, to really make sure that your enthusiasm for the role, your enthusiasm for your career path shows up. Because an employer is saying to themselves, they not only want somebody who is qualified for the role, they want someone who is passionate about the role, who's going to give discretionary effort, who's going to go above and beyond the call of duty. They're not just going to be, again, unconscious bias, sunsetting into retirement. We could blow holes in that statement all day long. But they're, again, back of their minds, that sometimes is what they're thinking. And so to the extent that you can, again, show passion, show enthusiasm, show your skills are current, show that you're interested in this role, asking really great questions, asking strategic questions about the role, about the industry, about the organization. All of that comes together, and then age can sort of disappear because then it's not about age. It's about you and your qualifications and your fit and all of that. And I don't care how old you are, right? I've seen people at all kinds of ages land jobs. So it doesn't have to be the case. And mentally too, don't make it be the case. Forget about it, really. Because if you're thinking about it a lot, you might be projecting it and not even realize it. Okay. So get that out of your head. You are a qualified candidate for this role, and you let your experience shine, and you let your personality shine, and you show them that you're a great fit for the role, and be a strong candidate, period, regardless of whatever sort of marginalized, you know, background you might have. And that's not just age. There's obviously a lot of other marginalized, you know, marginalizing factors, but I don't care what the thing is, don't let that stop you. You show up confident and show them why you're the best person for the role. Sonia?
I have a question on that. What do you do? Because I ran into this recently. When the recruiter, okay, I'm a senior level. Matter of fact, I'm an executive level HR person. And I do talk strategic because I want to know about the company. I want to know about your revenue, but you know, what's your priorities for the year? What does success look like for the organization, all those kind of questions. But the recruiter knows nothing. Everything, I don't know. Right. And then it get to the point, I don't know what to ask, because I'm not going to ask about HR functions, because I could do that with one eye tied behind my back. And once you've talked to me about what your issue is, I know what to do. But I start wanting to know about the company. I asked the question, is someone looking at you to merge or to acquire? I want to know the deep things about the business. Right. But the recruiters don't know. And then, so what I normally do, and I don't know if this is the right thing, so maybe you can give me a little guidance on this. When I get to the point where the recruiter, everything I ask, they don't know. I just cut it off, and I tell them, I said, okay, I said, well, I'm really very interested in an opportunity. I would like to go to the next level. And if I get to the next level with the hiring manager, I would ask some of these questions to the hiring manager. And I just cut it off like that, because I feel like when I start talking to them about the business and they don't know, I feel like they get uncomfortable because they don't know, and it makes them look bad. Yeah. And that's not what I'm trying to do.
No, I think it's okay to stump the recruiter like a couple times, but you're right. If you get to a point where they're feeling squeamish, you're right. I would just pull back a little bit and sort of try to figure out what they do know, and maybe ask some open-ended questions. And it could even be things as simple as the culture, right? Why they like working there, right? Things like that. Just keeping it more simple, because if you go strategic and they push back, just drop it to something that's a little bit broader, and that might help them feel, and that might help them bond with you a little bit more.
Okay, that's a good idea. That's matter of fact, it's a great idea. Talk about why, how long have you been there? What do you like about it?
And you can look them up up on LinkedIn, and that's good. Say, hey, I noticed that you've been there for 7 years or whatever, and what do you like about the organization? What do you like about the culture? You could certainly ask about the department, and what are the some of the strengths of the department, that kind of thing. Keep it positive, open, things that they would feel comfortable asking or answering.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Wendy, in the federal government, I know that age is not supposed to be at all a factor. Do you find it ever to be a factor? And is it, something that people can, overcome at all?
Right. So I don't think it's as much of a factor, because the experience is just really, really valued, I think. And so they're looking to see if you meet the qualifications for the job. And if you do, then, it's pretty open to you. So, but I still our clients have the same concerns that everybody does. And that's accounting for that. We can't account for that personal bias that might be there. But I would just echo everything that you said when I talk to my clients too. It's just that you have to focus on what you do bring. Yes. And just completely put that aside. There's no control you can exert over a personal bias, and you don't want to give off that focus on that area or that, connotation that's where you're coming from. And so that enthusiasm, energy, letting them know that you're ready for your next challenge, that your mindset is growth, and you're ready to move into your next challenge professionally. I think that's just really what you have to go into it with, and staying positive that you are bringing what they're looking for.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. Sonia?
I'm sorry. I got here late and I'm doing all the talking.
No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Ty did a lot of asking questions before you got here too, so it's all good. Go for it.
I do have a question based on what's going on here in our area. We have a very healthy job market. We just got people don't want to pull the trigger and say, like you said, sure, it's the purple squirrel or whatever.
Yep.
But what's going on now, you know, you've heard them say that in the federal government, if you don't get the vaccination, they are going to lay off. And it's a lot of people who don't have it. And because they feel that way, the people who are customers of theirs, you know, the GovCon, 9 times out of 10, they're going to do the same thing. That's the way they do business. So do you foresee with the people being laid off, possibly, let me just say it like that, with possibly layoffs coming up, and it will be a lot of people. Do you foresee a hiring drove coming down the pike? Like I'm thinking about you know, we're in Q4, we're going to get through this, you know, true up the year and get ready to file all our federal documents. But come January 1, will there be a hiring blitz trying to fill these roles with people who meet the requirements, you know, the federal, not just the skills requirements, but this health requirement thing? Do you foresee that as a blitz?
That's a great question. I mean, Wendy and Chris might be better apt to answer that.
You know, I would say it's hard to predict. I guess if we're going by what we've seen so far, the mandates have actually spurred people to go ahead and want to keep their job, so to comply. So if we look at that, then there might not be such a big, you know, shift of employees out of government and government contracting. I can't predict beyond that. I don't know.
Yeah, my former agency is over 90% vaccinated. I agree with Wendy that most people are getting vaccinated for whatever reason, and, you know, last ditch to keep their job. I think it'll be November before most agencies' HR processes are in place, from what I've been reading, to actually start the process of laying people off. And you all know how long that takes in the federal government. I don't expect to see a lot of it. What I am curious about, though, and the federal government is so late in releasing statistics, but I'm wondering about whether federal retirements have increased since COVID. OPM is really bad at releasing data. Federal Career Connection this coming Tuesday night is having an economist from Bureau of Labor Statistics talk about employment projections moving forward. I don't know if his part of BLS will handle that, but I'm certainly going to ask him, you know, what are we seeing in federal retirement? Because we know there's always been a lot more people eligible than retire. And we are seeing a lot of reevaluation in general, where people who are retirement eligible during COVID did decide to do that. So to me, that's a bigger question in the federal government, is the retirement rate.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy, are you seeing anything on that front?
I'm not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet, but I'll be curious to see that too.
Yeah. I know at CIA, we tracked that very, very closely because we had so many more people eligible, and it was a big concern. And so, yeah, it's a dynamic thing, and it's still too early to tell. So I don't know when we'll get the data, but for example, I need an endocrinologist now, and I've had a dickens of a time getting one. And I've had 2 different of my other doctors tell me, oh yeah, 4 endocrinologists in the Northern Virginia area retired this year. They just said, you know, it's time, it's COVID. Now that's just one specialty in the healthcare profession. But I think that's part of the Great Resignation, is also, you know, the Great Retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to ask, Sherry, didn't you do seminar this past weekend?
I'm doing one tomorrow.
Oh, well then I can't ask the question then. I wanted to, I won't make it. And you were giving pointers on something about the job market.
It's
And
going to be accessing the hidden job market.
Okay.
Actually, but you know what? I have it on my website. I have it's a presentation. Hold on, let me before I. Yep. Okay. So I have a presentation. The same presentation that I gave to another group. I recorded it and put it on my website. And so let me share it. So if you cannot make it tomorrow, go to purposefulhire.com. Go to the job seeker tab, and then go to Shira Speaks to Job Seekers, and then scroll all the way down, and it's accessing the hidden job market. Okay.
all right, the title fascinated me when you say hidden job market. I was
Well,
trying to figure out what that meant.
At least eight. Well, this is the headline, right? So at least 80% of all, and you know this, Sonia, because you've been a recruit and HR. At least 80% of all jobs are hidden from the market, meaning that they don't show up on job boards, that they're through people's networking. So Sonia, when you've been in HR, I know recruiting wasn't exactly like your full-time specialty, right? But you've hired people, obviously.
Many.
Right. So how many times did you go to your network? Hey, HR colleague. Hey, so-and-so, right? Who do you know that would be a good fit for this job? And you didn't post the job on Indeed. You didn't post it on Career Builder. Right? You just went to your network. It was hidden from the market. That's what I'm talking about. And so this presentation tomorrow is going to be about how to leverage your network so that you can be present when the job, so you're making yourself visible to your network so that when people in your network hear about opportunities that are not right for them, but they're right for you, they call you. Okay. That it's a networking presentation really, but I'm calling it accessing the hidden job market because that's how you get those hidden jobs. And the fact is that, we've said this before on this call that, your jobs, if you're trying to go after the job boards, the Career Builder, Indeed, all of that, even LinkedIn, meaning the LinkedIn job board. I'm not talking about the LinkedIn search features, the LinkedIn job board. All of those should only be 10% of your search. 10% max, because most people do not get their jobs through the job boards. Most people get their jobs through networking. Okay. It's just the way that it is. And so many people waste their time really applying. And what happens?
Hold on. Keep talking.
Most people apply, and your resume goes into cyberspace, right? Because you're competing with tons and tons of other people. But when you go through your network, you show up before your resume. Do you hear what I just said? You show up before your resume. Your reputation shows up before you. So then they're not just screening your resume, they've already been referred you by a trusted source. So networking is always key. Every job seeker group you will ever go to will emphasize that. And we do that here a lot. Network. So tomorrow's presentation will be on how to do that, with whom to do that. And I have this thing that I call the family tree of networking. And I say there's twins, siblings, first cousins, and second cousins, as if, right? And there's two kinds of those people who know you and people who get what you do. So here's a little preview, right? So the people who know you, a twin, okay, that's the person who is so close to you that they're going to help you move. They're going to dance at your wedding. I mean, these are people who, right, they know you by voice, okay? And those are the people who are going to be your biggest champions. Secondarily to that would be your siblings, okay? Sibling meaning somebody who also, you're good friends with, they know you by first name. Also probably going to be a champion. But then you get to your first cousins, and your first cousins might be a past, relationship that's very warm. They're not going to be a champion necessarily, but they'll be willing to help you. And then a second cousin is somebody who's a long time ago acquaintance who might remember your name if you remind them, and they might be willing to help you, right? So that's in order of relationship. But then there's the same family tree for people who get what you do. A twin is somebody who does what you do. So Sonia, right? You're an HR executive. The people in the HR leadership, the LIT, or so the leaders in transition thing, and I don't know all the levels, but let's just say that some of them are HR strategists like you. Those are your twins. because those are the people who, frankly, you're probably competing with, right? For similar, maybe for similar
Yeah,
jobs.
we are.
And so if it's not right, if the job's not right for them, it could be right for you. So your twin professional colleagues are some of the best people to network with because they're not competitors. They're collaborators. They're the people who are most likely to hear about the jobs that are exactly right for you, that they can refer you. And then you go down the food chain, right? You know, your sibling is somebody who's like, you know, maybe one step off from what you do, and you get the idea. The point is that the closer in your networking, the closer you can network to people who do what you do or get what you do, the more likely it is that they're going to have the right kind of referrals for you. So it's not just a matter of networking with anybody. I mean, you can network with someone you're sitting next to on an airplane, that's fine. But the chances of that person getting what you do and being able to make a meaningful referral, or your next door neighbor, right? Or whatever. But on the other hand, you never know. You literally never know. I will give you an example. Last night, it was just amazing. So a lot of you know that I have a community service project called Boomer Works. So Boomer Works, we're an all-volunteer organization. We help professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment. Last night, we had what's called a growth group. It's just a peer networking group, and we answer questions, just kind of like this. We answer questions. Anyway, well, as it happens, years ago, I was networking with a woman named Olia. She has her own business, and we had talked about Boomer Works, and we just sort of lost touch. Well, maybe a month ago, I showed up at a networking event, a random networking event that somebody invited me to. And she was there. I was like, oh, yeah. So of course she writes like, hey, Shira, let's have a Zoom coffee. And we did earlier this week. And we talked about Boomer Works again. Again, she had not been involved, hadn't been in touch with me. And I said, hey, we've got this meeting last night. I said, we're looking for small business experts. Would you like to join us? She goes, sure. As it turns out, there was a woman on the call, one of our participants, who has this super niche business. You can't even get more niche than this. It has to do with like overseas federal aviation. I didn't even understand it. It was so niche. It turns out Olia had this very background. It was the most, I was like, what? And they're like chit-chatting back and forth, and they're throwing up acronyms and all this stuff. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, God is so good, right? He just put them together. I couldn't believe it. And so you never know, right? In your networking, who is going to be the person, right? This woman got a ton of information from Olia. When I had never in a million years, I couldn't have even touched the question, right? Because it wasn't my background. So keep your networking going. Network with everybody you can. Yes, your next door neighbor could have a lead for you. Yes, the person who, goes to your church, whatever. Yes, people will. In addition, I would say the people who really get what you do are going to probably have the most meaningful referrals for you. Okay, so hope that's helpful. All right, other questions?
I have a question, and I apologize, I'm not on camera right now, but is this mostly about federal, or it's about everything?
Oh, our jobs, our call today is about every sector, every profession.
Okay, I just noticed some of your experts.
So Wendy and Chris have a lot of federal government background. I have private sector background, so we answer different kinds of questions.
Right. Awesome. So I used to come to these meetings more often, but I've actually been busy trying to do all that networking, and I've been interviewing a lot. And I've been getting very far along in most of them. But then I've, been Miss Runner-Up, which gets you nothing, right, at the end of the day. But one of the most perplexing situations I've been in, and what some of my friends that will call into Shira's call, and they might be able to help you. So I wanted to give you what's happened in this latest event, where again, I've had good feedback. It's a UK-based early stage company, and I've had good feedback on at least 4 interviews I've had, 4 to 6, depending on how you count them. And now I'm supposed to do this presentation to 2 of the executives. And so what happened is we were trying to schedule it, and it was difficult to schedule. And then they just went dark on me, totally dark on me, not answering, questions. So I figured somebody else had come along, and, I was Miss Runner-Up again. And so then all of a sudden they woke back up yesterday, And they said, we want to get that meeting scheduled. This is over 2 weeks later.
Oh, Meryl, I thought you were about to say 2 months. 2 weeks is nothing.
Really? No, this is a
Oh.
little tiny company though.
Doesn't
Just
matter.
a little,
No.
really?
People get busy, priorities get shifted around, they have best intentions, and a day just flies by, and a week goes by, and 2 weeks go by, and it feels like nothing to them. You're waiting by the phone, but they've got all these other priorities because hiring for them is lowest on their priority list usually. It's something they kind of have to do, and eventually they get around to it. So 2 weeks, oh, no. If
So you don't think like they went,
yeah, no, it can happen very easily.
because I was figuring maybe they went ahead with someone else and then it didn't work out. And so, you know,
It could
kind
be.
of
I mean,
maybe
that,
back to-
honestly, that could be too. There's all kinds of reasons, but don't sweat it. I've had people who've the company's gone dark for 3 months, and all of a sudden, hey, we want to make an offer. Wait, what? It happens. Yeah, I always say pack your patience when it comes to job search. Yep.
Yeah, and just the level of, again, with these companies that I'm, you know, going through 4 to 6 interviews or so and getting good reviews, and the level of ghosting after that, like, it's just, and I can't, you know, I'm not, I mean, this is a bigger problem to solve, but I mean, are you hearing this from other people? And it's not like I can't connect the dots and see, you know, I mean, obviously I'm not doing as well as I should be. I've never really had to look for a job. This is the first time I've really had to look for it, you know, do a big campaign. And of course I've got all sorts, you know, I've got things like a gap and my age, et cetera, to deal with. But are you hearing a lot of like people getting ghosted after a lot of interviews? It's one thing to get ghosted after one, or, you know, when you submit a resume.
It can happen, Meryl, it can happen anytime. And Dan, before you got on the call, Dan was sharing a similar kind of a story where he, you know, they'd said, okay, you know, we want to interview you this Friday, blah, blah, they back and forth, and then nothing. And then he's like, wait, hello, are we confirmed? Are we not? And then nothing. And they were literally trying to schedule an interview. And he shows up that Friday call, and 3 minutes after the start time, they're like, oh, sorry, we can't do, I mean, so if we had, there are only what, a dozen people on this call now. If we had 100 people on this call, we would probably have, you know, that many more people who would share the very same stories that you're talking about right now. Because Meryl, people are swamped. People have competing priorities. New candidates show up. Hiring managers suddenly say, oh, I don't want that anymore. And then the recruiter forgets to follow up, or they don't follow up in a timely way, or they're putting somebody on the back burner. I had to do that recently, actually, with a candidate who was a solid candidate, right? But wasn't like the perfect fit, okay? And the employer said, well, I just want to go through the process with the other people and da, 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 da. And, you know, and I knew they weren't going to hire them. I'm like, let's just see. So eventually I had to let him down. But
that's what I figured, that's kind of, I wondered if in a lot of these cases, that was it. It's kind of like the Miss Runner-Up thing or whatever. Like they decide that, well, we think we're going to go forward with this other person. We won't tell them yet, but, you know, because after you go through 4 to 6 interviews, and in these cases, there's no external recruiters involved. I mean, there might be an internal.
That's right. They don't want to say anything until they have to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. All right. And I don't see the order of who raised their hand first. So I'm just going to go with Eric. Sorry if Pam or Marvin, you raised it first. I wasn't tracking that. So
I was the last one to raise my hand.
Oh, the last. Okay. So if
Marvin was first.
Great. Marvin, you go first.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, Marvin.
I was just listening to Meryl, and trust me, Meryl, I know that we just walked through that with me. Couple of interviews, and then it went dark and didn't hear anything. And actually, the third interview was scheduled, and they emailed me the day before and canceled that interview. And then just nothing, but people went on vacation and all of that. So, but I want to tell you, after all of that, 3-4 interviews, the going dark, I ended up, going back for an interview. I got the job, and I'll be starting the job on the 25th of this month. So it does work out. Trust me, we've been on this on Fridays, and I've been kicking kicking myself and just holding on and practicing patience, it does come through. So I just wanted to tell you that you're not alone. All right.
You know
Thanks.
what? If I can also make an analogy, thank you for that, Marvin. And thanks last week, Marvin gave his whole testimonial about how he got his job, and it was really exciting. So thank you, Marvin, for coming back, like you said you would.
Wow.
I do want to make a comparison here. For those of you who either have ever been self-employed or know anybody who's self-employed, or people who own a small business or any business, there's a sales process. Okay. So salespeople, small business owners, self-employed people are always looking for their next gig. They're always looking for the next client. And they are networking and networking and networking. And sometimes they submit RFPs, and sometimes they're talking to client. And you never know when the next gig is going to come. And so salespeople learn a level of resilience. Okay. Because we're always hunting, right? Always looking for the next client. And because job seekers are not, because in a W-2 job, you only have to do this periodically in your career. You don't have your resilience muscles built up like a salesperson would. Okay. Salespeople are constantly at it, constantly getting rejections. Oh, here's a possibility. Oh, let me follow up. And oh, 3 months later, call me back, blah, blah, blah. Oh, nothing happened. 6 months later, nothing. That's what a salesperson goes through. So we develop that muscle and we develop that rhythm. And I want you to encourage you to get into that sales mindset, because you are selling yourself. You are Pam Inc., Eric Inc., Wendy, Dan Inc., Chris, you're an Inc. You don't know that. All you think is that you're looking for a job, but you're looking for a gig. And in fact, especially these days, I mean, who stays 25 years anymore? There's turnover, right? You're going to stay a couple years, 5 years, 7 years, I don't know. But at some point, you're going to be looking again. It's just a long-term gig as opposed to a salesperson who's getting a short-term gig. Okay. So get into a sales mindset, get into what we call a hunter mindset in sales, right? Hunting for the next thing, and pursue it as if it's just one egg in your basket. Oh, like what a salesperson does, they have what's called a funnel, right? They reach out to lots and lots of prospects over here, and the funnel gets narrower and narrower. And finally at the bottom, you get the one thing. I know somebody who's about to launch a business venture, and he has to recruit a lot of prospects because he's going to be forming a CEO roundtable. And he was told he has to reach out to 350 to 400 contacts in order to get one person to register for this thing. Okay. So big funnel, big pipeline of contacts. You never know what's going to happen, but it takes that many, you know what I mean? Like many more networking contacts to get that one opportunity. And then you never know what's going to happen. So you have other things in the hopper, other things in the hopper, other things in the hopper. Do not fixate on the one thing. Emotionally, yeah, you can get a little bit excited, but not overly excited, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the competition, right? If I recently was vetted to do an executive search, and it got narrowed down to myself and 3 other search firms. And so we all 4 got interviewed, after our proposal, and I didn't get the assignment. That's okay. Obviously wasn't my assignment. It was meant for somebody else. Okay. That's the other thing. God has a plan for each one of us, right? And what's our assignment? What is the thing that is meant for us to do? And whether it's me in that search or you in that job, right? It's either right for you or it's not. So you want to keep yourself emotionally resilient and go on to the next thing and the next thing until the right thing happens. So there's your inspiration for the moment. All right. Other questions?
Yeah, just real quick, Shira. Folks are talking about follow-up. And so had a couple interviews week before last, sent the thank you note, did all of those things. Followed up again, didn't hear anything for about a week, followed up again. So it's only been a day. I mean, I just followed up yesterday. So how long do I wait till I ping them again? And then at what point do you just,
Well, what kind of stage are you in? Meaning
they were just initial screening, initial screen.
Wait, so they have already screened you?
Yeah, one was with the recruiter, and she sent my resume up, and she said, I've sent it to you. She had me make some changes. She said, you did a great job on that. I'm going to adjust your salary range that you put based on what they've told me, and I'm going to send it on. And if I don't hear from them by tomorrow, which was last Friday, then I'll follow up with them. Well, yesterday was Thursday, haven't heard from her, so I sent her an email. The other was with the HR manager. I talked with her on the phone. She said, send me your stuff. And when I sent it, she said, thank you, Pam. I'm going to send it up the flagpole. I'll get back to you soon. So that was a
You
week.
haven't, look, you are certainly you are welcome to follow up maybe in
Yeah.
another week or so. But here's the thing, Pam, and we say this on this call a lot. If the employer wants you, they will track you
Damn.
down.
Okay.
They will send a carrier pigeon to your home.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So
No
it's
answer. That's the answer.
it's not, just because you have a little anxiety about it, put that aside. Like I said in sales, go on to the next part of the funnel, go on to the next
Sure.
lead, take it out of your mind. If they want you, they will find you. You go on to the next thing.
Very good.
Yeah. All right. Eric.
So a recruiter contacts you out of the blue. What's the game plan?
Be more specific.
Well, I get a lot of contacts from emails from recruiters from LinkedIn and Indeed with they say the jobs and whatnot. I don't know what's the perfect way to go about dealing with them.
Just respond to them. I mean, I don't know how else to answer that other than assume it's a legitimate recruiter, assume it's a legitimate job, and just go with their flow. If they say, please send me your resume. Are you interested? Here's the job posting. Literally just follow their lead. Whatever they've asked you for, keep it going. If they ask you for an interview, if you're interested in the role, take the interview. Just treat it like any normal outreach.
And oftentimes, when I did do this once, I got an interview. They completely bypassed the recruiter, and I went straight to a hiring manager.
Yeah, normal. Very normal.
Happens?
Every company has a different hiring process. Some have a recruiter, some don't. Some have a recruiter just to screen your resume and then they pass you off to the hiring manager. Sometimes the hiring manager is doing the recruiting. Sometimes it's the HR person who's doing the recruiting. I mean, it can be a mixed up kind of a thing. Sometimes you go straight to the CEO. I don't know, if it's a really small company. I mean, it could be any permutation of things. So just.
If that happens, should you schedule a one-on-one with the recruiter to get the lay of the land?
You mean if the recruiter does not, if the recruiter passes you right on to the HR or to the hiring manager? Look, you can, I mean, that's a good thing to ask. I mean, that would be great if they're willing to prep you for it. They may not always be willing to do that. You can certainly ask and say, look, before I meet with the hiring manager, Mr. Recruiter, would you be open to a short call so I can get, familiarize myself with the culture, with the role, with the personality, basically have you prep me. You can always ask. I don't know if they're going to say yes, but you can ask.
But they get paid if you get through, so why wouldn't they?
Oh, you're talking about a third-party recruiter?
No, internal or third.
Well, you're an intern. Okay, so an internal recruiter is on a salary. They're just a regular employee.
Oh, they are? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Regular. So just to clarify, and this might be worth talking about for a second, about who are recruiters. Okay. There are basically two kinds of recruiters. There's what we call a corporate recruiter, and then there's a third-party recruiter. Third-party recruiter is sometimes called a headhunter, search firm, permanent placement firms, all the same. So a corporate recruiter is hired by the company. They're a regular W-2 employee. They're paid a salary. They walk and talk like any other employee. And no, there's no commission involved or anything like that. They're just recruiting. And the reason why that company can hire or afford to hire a full-time recruiter is because they're big enough and they have enough openings to justify somebody sitting in that seat for 40 hours a week. Okay. Whereas if it's a smaller company and they don't have a lot of openings, what they're going to do if they want support with recruiting, they're going to outsource it. They're going to outsource it to a recruiter. Like I happen to be a recruiter. So the organizations I work with are on the smaller side. They have an HR person sometimes, not always, and they definitely don't have, or usually don't have, a corporate recruiter. They need an outsourced person. Now, if that outsourced person, that headhunter, that third party, reaches out to you, you're absolutely right. They are paid on commission, and it is absolutely in their best interest to move that process along to get you hired. And they will often do whatever they can do to do that. And often they will prep you and hold your hand. I mean, to varying degrees, but they will often do something more than just, hey, great resume, let me pass you off to But again, every recruiter is different. Is that helpful?
Okay.
Okay. Marvin, did you have another question?
Oh, no, I forgot to put my hand down.
No, okay.
Mhm.
All right. So I'm looking at time here, and we typically wrap up around now, but if there's another last minute question, happy to entertain it.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I think it's important to be transparent in terms of ageism. Like in the past, I've used the phrase, "Wow, I appear to be overqualified. I'm passionate," or I give my reasons why I want to work for the organization. I don't know if anybody else has a comment regarding that.
Wendy, Chris?
I think that's a good idea, Ty, for sure. For me, it's seeing curiosity at any age, and a learning mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's there are all kinds of reasons why people have biases. And I will tell you that generally speaking, employers, when they're thinking about any hire, they're thinking about the following, okay, in no particular order. They want someone who can do the job right now, does not need a long learning curve. They want someone who's not going to be bored, or at least their perception. They don't want someone who's going to be bored in the job. They want someone who's going to be a good culture fit, somebody they can afford, of course, someone who's not going to have a long commute. I mean, if you think about it logically, what are all the different variables that an employer would need? If you were the hiring manager, what would you be interested in general? Am I going to get along with this person? Will the team get along with this person? Will the person have the skills to do the job right now? Not be, again, not too long of a learning curve, but not so qualified that they're going to find this an uninteresting job. Those kinds of things. So as you're vetting opportunities, put the hiring manager's hat on. And then when you're showing up, you want to be able to address those things, right? Address your skill set, address the fact that, yes, this is an interesting level job for you. Especially if it's a job title that might be perceived to be a step back, so I as a recruiter will often do that. I'll look at a resume thinking, why did this is a director level, they were a VP. But I've learned enough over the years that, sometimes I will flex. I'll be like, what, maybe there's a reason where they were a VP and maybe they're like, okay with the step back now. If they've been a VP for like 20 years and I know that this is a lower level director job, I may be so circumspect, right? But then again, everybody's got a different story. So you want to make sure that, especially if there's something that you think is going to be an objection, address it in your cover letter. And especially if you can get an internal champion, somebody to, flag your resume, meaning, somebody who knows somebody in the company, that person could be your champion. That person can say, look, I know Ty's resume looks a little bit different than what we wanted, but there's a reason for that. And then they can be your mouthpiece. Like it's almost like having an ambassador or something. Right? Have your own personal ambassadors. I should start calling that instead of internal champion, personal ambassadors. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up with that. And as per usual, once we conclude the call, I do offer a short prayer meeting for those of you who would like to stick around. And so you're welcome to do that. So for now, we will go ahead and sign off. Oh, Eric, did you have something?
One last thing. When I got onto the call late because I couldn't get in. The Zoom link didn't work, and I had to actually open up the Zoom app and put the meeting link in. When I got in, you mentioned something about another meeting tomorrow or something.
Yes.
What's that?
Yeah. Yep. So tomorrow, I'm going to be speaking at an organization called Career Confidence. And yeah. So let me put the link back in here. Here's the meetup link. So it's going to be 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's going to be, the topic is accessing the hidden job market. Then on Tuesday, I'll be speaking at the Career Network Ministry on resume and LinkedIn branding. So again, go to Meetup. I don't have the link for it yet, but go to Meetup, and hopefully by the end of the day, they'll have the meeting posted. And that one is 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and again, if you're interested in any of the videos, so again, if you go to my website, purposefulhire.com, and then go to the job seeker tab, And then Shira Speaks to Job Seekers is a whole bunch of videos from all these different presentations I've given in the past on these various topics. All right, if you can't make any one of these. Okay, so we'll sign off here.